Anxiety Club. How's it going? Back here again for another Saturday sessions. I'm very excited to dive into this topic. This topic is something that I have personally been affected by quite heavily for the past 5 years, and it has really affected me. And honestly, if you're someone that deals with this, I just want you to know you're not alone. I've dealt with it every day for the past 5 years, and it can be debilitating some days, and other days it doesn't affect me as much. But okay, let's get into what I'm talking about. The topic that I want to go over with you guys today is homesickness. And I know you're probably thinking geez, you really hyped that up for it to just be the topic of homesickness. But I just want to say homesickness is one of those things that can affect people quite heavily more than others. And this is Cowboy. I'm someone that it has affected quite massively. I moved to Nashville at a super young age at 19. And I think, changing my life so drastically, at that age when you're, just becoming an adult and figuring things out, really challenged me in lots of ways. And I grew up pretty quickly. But I want to take it back a little bit more. So the homesickness all started for me in not high school, college. So when I first, I honestly kind of want to call my mom and ask her take on this, because when I first went to college, I seriously came home every weekend. I do think it's part of me and part of my DNA to be just someone that gets really homesick. But yeah, I went to my freshman year of college, and it was an hour and a half away from my mom's house, not even far. And I would still come home every weekend. I think I'm just someone that really loves routine and doesn't like change. And so trying to change anything in my life, is really difficult and sets me back and creates this, I want to use the word tragic energy, because I just become super anxious and uncomfortable. My stomach hurts. I don't feel right. I don't feel myself. And so in that uncomfortable mindset, I think the first thing that naturally we want to do is what do I do right now to make it so that this feeling goes away? And in order to get that feeling to go away, I just would go home and go back to what I was comfortable with and hang out with my mom and, see my parents and they still are, they're my best friends, so I don't know. It was really hard anyways to get out to college. And it definitely, my freshman year of college was the first year that I experienced anxiety. And I do want to pause for a second, because I do have anxiety club crews that are available on my Etsy, and you would be supporting an independent artist by checking out the description below to click the link, and you can purchase one on Etsy. I love them. They're super cozy. I wear it all the time. And honestly, when I do wear it out, I always get compliments. So you'll definitely get complimented on it if you wear it. But yeah, so that kind of started my homesickness journey. And honestly, I think that homesick feeling and that feeling of change and pulling me out of my routine, created the anxiety version of Lexi that is definitely still present today. So yeah, that was definitely difficult. And then what I ended up doing, which is kind of funny, but I do music. And so I was oh, I want to move to Nashville. I want to start a career in Nashville, Tennessee, doing my music, which is so bizarre of me it's so out of character for me to be oh, I want to just move to Nashville and start a career in music, because everyone around me is huh? You? Girl, you can't even go an hour and a half away from your parents' house. You're going to move to Nashville, huh? Sure did. And I can say I went through a lot of ups and downs. I would say a lot more downs than ups when I first got there. But it was exciting, but it was this feeling of just kind of loneliness that really set in after being in Nashville by myself for like a couple weeks. But let me tell you about it. So when I first got to Nashville, I was living with some of my parents' friends that they knew, like friends of friends. And, I immediately went and got a job working at a cafe because I knew in my head, I was like, well, I should probably get involved in something. Oh, also backstepping here. I stayed in school, but I was a full-time online student. So like I still was taking classes in college, but online. So like my whole life was just like super abnormal at the time. But this was the summer that I moved to Nashville. So I was like working at a cafe, and I ended up actually quitting because the owner of the cafe, like my manager, she like threw a cup of coffee at my feet one day because I made something wrong, like just super weird. And I was like, all right, peace out, I'm not dealing with this. But that ended up working out perfectly because then the summer was over and I had to go start taking my online classes. And at the time, you guys are going to crack up about this. At the time, I was a psychology major. So if you know me now, like I do music, I work in music, I'm an artist, like my life is centered around music. But yeah, I actually started off by going to college by thinking, oh, I'm going to be a doctor. Like in another life, I think I would be a baby delivery nurse. Like that's always been something that I thought would be like, I'd be really great at. And so yeah, that's what I went to college for. So I'm like taking these psychology classes and I'm living now in a different house. So like I'm so excited to tell you guys about my Nashville experience in another episode, but long story short, I ended up moving from one house to another. And in the second house is when I started my school. So I was like living with a family, basically. I was like in a host home. I was like living in their pool house. They're so amazing. I'm so thankful for them. I love them. And yeah, so I was like living in their pool house, and I was this psychology online student living in Nashville. And like at night I would just go like out to bars or out to different, I don't know, writers rounds. Cause in Nashville, there's a lot of writers rounds and showcases. So it's pretty easy to get involved in the music scene out there. But it was very out of character for me to not only not naturally have community, because when you go to college, like you're surrounded by a bunch of other people that also are just now experiencing something new and around a bunch of people that don't know each other. So it's like in college, I feel like it's so easy to find friends, right? But I was like, not me. The one person that is probably the most homesick here is like, oh, let me just up and move to Nashville and be an online student. So I was super lonely out there. It was really uncomfortable, but I always I did it because I knew that I could be an artist. I believed in my music. I believed in my voice. I still do. And we've come so far since then, and things are going really well. But like when you first start, it's just like it's all going off of this dream. And I was very passionate about it. And so I stuck with it. And so I would literally dissect pig kidneys and cow hearts in this host home. So like these people are hosting me and I'm dissecting pig kidneys and cow hearts in their living room because I was a psychology major. So I had to take all these science classes. So they would ship me from college. They would ship me my own pig kidney and cow heart to dissect. And like, I didn't have a lab partner. I didn't have a lab or anything like that. I was just dissecting things in the kitchen. Like what? So abnormal, so strange, so weird. So like, I don't know, there's kind of a reason I feel like that I, have developed a lot of anxiety over time. And I think that's because I just chose a very abnormal path. But, all that being said, like it all started with homesickness. And I think it's still something that I felt every day in Nashville and really struggled with. Like, I'd come back home to see my family a lot back in Denver, and I'd go back to Nashville, and like every time I'd go back to Nashville, I would just cry. Like it was so hard for me to leave home because they're just like, I have such a pull to my family, and like I love being around them, and they're fun and they make me laugh, so then it was just like so hard to be like, oh, I have this dream in my head, I really am so passionate about pursuing a career in this, and unfortunately like it's just not in Denver. Like I have to go to Nashville, I have to start in Nashville, that's what I believed at the time. And And I think it's valid, right? Because, like, you know, I think Denver has a growing music scene, but, like, I wanted to go to Nashville to really see how, like, the country artists do it out there and experience it, obviously. So, anyways. But, yeah, so I experienced a ton of homesickness, and that really developed into anxiety and panic attacks. And I think all of it just came from this concept of change and being uncomfortable and just not feeling settled in, or feeling like I had, you know, girlfriends that wanted to like go out and hang out, or, you know, go to the movies or go get some sushi or something like that. Like, everyone that I was around was older than me because they were either the family I was living with, or, you know, they were artists in Nashville that, you know, we would have a co-write, but it was still very like, you know, we're writing together and then like everyone goes their separate ways. So it kind of felt like a job, you know? And then my school was online. So I was just pretty lonely out there for a while until I ended up transferring schools, which I did end up doing. I ended up transferring schools, and I ended up actually going in person to take classes, and that changed everything. Like, I made friends and I had more of a community. And I will say, you know, one thing too about being homesick, if you're currently experiencing it, or if you've experienced it before, then maybe you can relate to this, or if you experience it sometime in the future. I know that getting involved in things seems so cliche, but I do think it really helps. Like, when I was really homesick out there, in Nashville, I was like, oh, I need to get involved in something. Like, at first it was the job, right? I was working at that cafe. That ended. But then I was like, what could I do that's creative? I could get around people my age, like, you know, maybe make some more friends, have more community. And this was before I ended up transferring to a new college, where I was in person. So I was still online at the time. And I ended up joining an acting class. And this acting class just brought me like such a world of friendships and community and purpose, and a place to be every day that was like outside of, you know, the house I was living in, or, you know, outside of like, you know, going to writers' rounds. And I got so involved in this, and it was so creative. It was such a creative space for me. And so I think if you're experiencing homesickness, I would 1000% recommend just getting involved in something. And it could mean so many different things, like whatever you love to do, really. It could be like, another thing that I did is, I was taking yoga classes. I love core power yoga. I still do it to this day every once in a while. But like back then, I literally did core power yoga so much that I was possibly going to class like 2 times a day. And it was just because I was like craving somewhere to be. And I wanted to go do something that I enjoyed doing around people that also were like-minded in that way and like enjoyed doing it as well. So I would 100% recommend getting involved in something, which, like I said, I know it sounds cliche, but I do think that if you can push yourself to try something new, like an art class or a cooking class or a workout class or a cycling class or a run club or something like that, where you can get around people that like to do the same things as you, I promise it will change the way that you experience your homesickness, because eventually, you know, you'll find your routine, you'll find the people that you can connect with out there in your new place. And then hopefully things will start to feel a little bit more normal. Another thing that I wrote down was, Instagram. Yeah, okay. So this is another thing that I did when I was in Nashville, and when I was like trying to make friends, I would just outreach to people on Instagram. And it was like weird sometimes, like to start a new conversation with a girl out there, and especially on Instagram too, where it's just like, we've never met, but like, I noticed you do music, like I'm looking for some new friends, would you ever want to grab coffee sometime? Like, I don't think that's weird personally, and I feel like if people think that's weird, then like, I don't know, we're not meant to be friends then, you know? Because like, to me, it's not weird for someone to like, if someone reached out to me and was like, hey, like I just am new to town, like looking for friends, you seem cool, would you ever want to like hang out or grab lunch sometime? 100%, like absolutely, I love that. So yeah, challenge yourself to like reach out if you can, even if it feels a little weird, because even when I would like go out to lunch or drinks or coffee or with someone new in Nashville, like I enjoyed every second of it, and it was so much fun getting to meet someone new, and I always left feeling better than I did before I got there. So because you leave and you're like, oh, I have a new friend, you know, someone that might invite me to do something in the future sometime. Another thing too is like stay busy. If you are, find yourself dealing with homesickness and, you don't have much going on, I think that really can make it worse. So if you just stay busy, whether it's with work or like things that you like to do or making plans with friends, like 100% recommend keeping your brain occupied when you're dealing with homesickness. Another thing I do is obviously always plan when I'm going to go back to Denver. So like anytime I would leave Denver, I would always know when I'm going to be returning back to Denver to get to see my family and return home. So that way I was able to have something to look forward to and then go back home and like hang out with them. And then, but one thing I will know is like, I always book my flights because I still deal with this to this day. Like I live in LA now and I've definitely, some of it has gone away, but I still deal with it a lot. And so whenever I come back to LA, I always book my flight in the evening to return back to LA. So that way when you get back to the place that isn't, as much home, I guess. Like if you're returning back to LA from Denver for me, I always book my flight in the evening. So when I get here, it's like later and I can go to bed. Like I don't want to deal with the homesick feeling until I'm like full rested. I want to wake up the next morning and like with a fresh eyes, fresh head. Usually I'll like meditate, go get a workout in, and then have a busy day and like scheduled out for you. Whether you're going to go see like a movie later with a friend or you have work or whatever it is, just have something to do. Like don't sit in bed all day. That will not help your case. So yeah, 100% recommend getting, having a busy schedule. Yeah, I think, being homesick is such a strange feeling because for me, I would always, whenever I experience it, like it bubbles up in my throat and in my chest and sometimes with a stomach ache and I just want to cry. And it's like programmed in me. It's so strange. Like every time that I come back to LA after visiting Denver, I always feel that way for like 24 hours. And then eventually it does go away, especially when I get back into my routine out here. But yeah, I hope this was helpful at some, like a little bit, as I was going to say, at some capacity. I hope this was helpful at some capacity. But I really do deal with this stuff a lot. So if there's anything that, helps you with your homesickness, or if you have any homesick remedies, like please comment them, because I know, a lot of people that are going to be watching this might deal with anxiety and homesickness. So I would love to know your remedy. And, yeah, like we're all just here to, be a community together. And I know I said it in my last episode, but these Anxiety Club Saturday sessions are specifically for us to hang out on the weekends. Like if you're someone that doesn't really love to go out on the weekends, specifically at night, like you don't really want to go out to a bar or a club or something, like just know that these are going to be dropping every week on the weekends. Specifically going to be dropping them on Fridays, but it's either going to be like Friday mornings or Friday evenings. So just like look out for them on Fridays. Know that they're going to be out for you to watch on Friday night if you don't want to go out. They'll also be available on Saturdays, of course, if you want to watch these on Saturdays. But yeah, let me know if there's any topics that you guys want to touch on in the future, and be sure to check out my music on all streaming platforms. Grab an Anxiety Club crew. I'm super happy you're here. And yeah, I'll see you next week. Bye.